We were stuck in traffic on the highway when my 2-month-old son, Jordan Patrick, started wailing with hunger. When I reached for the hypoallergenic formula I'd prepared, I found expired dog food instead. I scrambled in search of the formula, but my husband, feral Patrick, stopped me. I gave the formula to Nancy because her dog's been having stomach issues lately. Just find something else to feed Jordan for now. Nancy's dog cost $30,000, so it deserves the $2,000 formula. Jordan is a boy, he needs to learn to tough it out. I yanked my arm free from his grip and hissed, Jordan has severe allergies. He's reactive to over 200 substances and needs to drink the hypoallergenic formula. He's only 2 months old. He can't even handle solid food yet. You took his special formula to feed a dog. Do you want him to starve to death? Farrell frowned, annoyed. Nancy's parents are gone. Rocky is the only family she has left. What's wrong with letting it have a little formula to ease its stomach? You're a mother. How can you be so heartless? I was ready to bolt out of the car. Is our son's life worth less than a dog's? Farrell slapped me, yelling, as the saying goes, a baby only grows strong if they experience a little hunger and cold. It won't kill him to miss a few meals. Back when we were kids, nobody had allergies. It's just an excuse for being over-pampered. A little hunger will help clear his stomach. Stop overreacting. My heart wrenched as I looked at my son, who was weak and pale from hunger. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It's just a can of formula. Do you really have to make such a scene? Aren't you embarrassed? Nancy's shoulders. Don't say that. It's not your fault. He shot me a cold look and continued, some people just love to blow things out of proportion, acting like a lunatic over a can of milk. Nancy cast a timid glance at Jordan, who was crying miserably. But Jordan has never cried like this before. Has Chekilia not been taking proper care of him? Although she spoke softly, it was clear enough for the surrounding passerbys who were drawn to the commotion. My goodness, is she copying those TV dramas? Hurting her child just to win her husband's affection? Who goes out with just one can of formula? She's definitely just picking on the other woman because she's an easy target. She can't even handle her own child. How dare she blame others? Farrell scowled and jabbed a finger at me. Are you done with this pretense? You don't even work, and you can't even manage one child. You are just a petty woman who can't bear to see Nancy happy. I was shaking with anger. I raised my hand to slap him, but at that moment, Jordan's crying began to fade. His face was turning purple. Jordan. I frantically rubbed his back, but his breathing grew weaker. I bit my lip until it bled, refusing to let a single tear fall. Jordan hasn't drunk the formula for 4 hours. He's in danger. We're stuck in traffic, and the ambulance can't get to us. I'm begging you to return the formula. Nancy cut in with a chuckle. Are you trying to play victim again? Is your life so miserable that you have to use your son to stage an act? Farrell wrenched his arm away from me in disgust. You've lost your mind from staying at home with the baby all day. You're always paranoid and spouting nonsense. Then, he shoved me with sudden force. I pressed Jordan to my chest. But the back of my head slammed hard against the car door. My head exploded in pain, and my vision went dark. However, I didn't have time to check my injury. I needed to check if Jordan was hurt. Formula, I mumbled, carrying Jordan as I stumbled toward Nancy's car. I found the familiar can in the back seat, but it was empty. Chapter 2. How is this possible? My hands shook as I held the empty can. How could 900 grams of formula be gone so quickly? I raised my head and stared at Nancy. Give me back my formula. Nancy covered her mouth with exaggerated shock, saying, My goodness. Cecilia, are you seriously making your son fight a dog for food? Have you lost your mind? I was trembling with fury and pointed at her face. Didn't your mother teach you to keep your filthy hands off others' things? Jordan is only 2 months old. Why are you so vicious? How could you say that, Cecilia? I kept 2 cans of imported dog food for Jordan. They're from reputable international brands, more nutritious than regular milk formula. Before I could say anything, Farrell snatched the cans of dog food and hissed, the dog food that Nancy got for Rocky cost $500 a can. Jordan should count himself lucky that she's sharing with him. Instead of being grateful, you're repaying her kindness with resentment. Then, he forcefully pulled Jordan out of my arms and attempted to shove the dog food into his mouth. I threw myself at Farrell like a mad woman. Jordan is only 2 months old. He can only drink formula. You'll kill him if you do that. My desperate pleading shook Farrell, causing him to hesitate for a moment. However, Nancy urged gently, Cecilia, I know you hate me, but you can't risk Jordan's health just to vent your anger. Experts say that children need to be exposed to different proteins from an early age to grow stronger. My dog food is imported and of top quality. Its ingredients are cleaner and safer than baby formula. It won't hurt Jordan to eat a little. This is all my fault. I'll leave with Rocky right away. Please, don't torture Jordan. As she spoke, her eyes suddenly filled with tears, and the people surrounding us immediately began to murmur, she just make do for once. Yeah, I think she's just using the child as an excuse, picking a fight out of jealousy. She's terrifying. She'd rather let her son starve, just to win an argument. The other woman means well. Having dog food is better than starving, isn't it? Their words made Farrell furious. He shoved me hard and bellowed, look at what you've done to Nancy. Jordan is definitely eating dog food. Today, he tore the can open and crammed the foul, stinking paste into Jordan's mouth. A sharp pain ripped through my chest. I hurled forward like a mad woman, desperate to snatch it from Farrell. Jordan was choking, his face turning purple as a horrible gurgling sound tore from his throat. His tiny hands clawed weakly at the air. His nails raked bloody lines down Farrell's arm, but Farrell didn't seem to mind the pain. He was determined to finish his monstrous act of feeding. Memories flooded my mind. He had once stood outside the delivery room, weeping with joy as he promised to be the best father in the world. He had once spent sleepless nights pacing the living room, rocking a wailing Jordan in his arms, humming lullabies. Hopelessly out of tune. We once made a promise by the crypt that our child would grow up surrounded by love. And now, that man who once cradled his son like a treasure was forcing dog food down Jordan's throat, watching as his eyes rolled back, and doing nothing to stop it. 5 years of love, 3 years of marriage, and 1,000 nights of trust, everything collapsed in that single moment. Farrell Patrick, let's divorce, I said calmly. Farrell flung me aside and snarled, will you ever stop? Always threatening divorce like some bitter hag. The roads jammed. Who are you? Trying to fool with your pathetic act? Do you really have to embarrass all of us? In my arms, Jordan's frantic cries faded to weak whimpers. His small limbs twitched, then he grew limp. I could feel his fragile life slipping away. Please, someone, help us, call the police. I looked around at the crowd, begging for help. Farrell snapped impatiently, "What kid doesn't cry? A mother who coddles a child too much ends up spoiling him. She's got postpartum depression, so she's always paranoid and hysterical. Everyone, just ignore her." My chest clenched so hard that it hurt to breathe each time. The world spun as I lifted Jordan and cried out desperately, "Look at him. Jordan can't hold on much longer." Unexpectedly, Nancy was the first to step forward. "Don't panic, Cecilia. I know some basic first aid." She pulled a small, unmarked vial from her pocket and tilted it to Jordan's lips to feed him. Then, she turned her back to the crowd and flashed a menacing smile. "Relax. It's just something to help him sleep. The dose is tiny, so he'll only sleep for a day or two," she said softly. I stared at the vial of liquid in her hand and froze. "Get away from us." Nancy leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Cecilia, if two of us fell at the same time, who do you think Farrell would help first?" Before I could react, she shoved me hard and then deliberately fell backward. I instinctively protected Jordan, taking the full impact as my knees slammed on the ground. "That hurts." Nancy sat on the ground and looked at Farrell with teary eyes. "Cecilia, I know you hate me, but you shouldn't have pushed me." Farrell stormed over and kicked me in the shin. "Are you crazy, Cecilia Ridge? How dare you bully Nancy in front of everyone?" His foot landed exactly where my knee had already taken the hit. Pain exploded up my leg, and my vision went dark. Jordan nearly slipped from my arms. The crowd began whispering and pointing at us. "That old hag must have gone crazy. She can't keep her man, so she's lashing out. What a disgrace to women. She's raising a child, but she acts as jealous as a teenager. Has she even looked in a mirror?" I fought through pain and tried to explain. She pushed me first. Nancy protested with a tear-streaked face, "Cecilia, how could you say that? I only wanted to comfort Jordan because he was crying so hard." Farrell shook his head in disappointment and said, "I was going to speak up for you and Jordan, but it seems unnecessary now." Nancy's friend added mockingly, "Maybe we should dump her on the highway. You are so unfortunate to be traveling with a shrew." Jordan's face grew paler by the second. I struggled to beg a passerby for help. "Please, call me an ambulance. My child is almost dying." The woman frowned and stepped back. "Listen to my advice. When you're out in public, don't embarrass your man. How is your husband going to command respect, given your public outburst? Just lower your head, apologize, and it'll all blow over." I nearly passed out. I tapped Jordan's cold cheek, whispering, "Jordan, don't sleep. Look at mommy." Just then, the police loudspeaker sounded. "The traffic is clearing. Everyone, please, return to your vehicles." With the last of my strength, I reached out to the fluorescent figure in the distance. Help! A surge of rage and terror ripped through me so hard that I could barely breathe. No matter how I opened my mouth to let air in, I felt like a fish gasping on dry land. "Hurry! Call an ambulance!" Nancy shrieked, leaning against Farrell. "I think my ribs are broken. If they've punctured my lungs, I might die." "Here!" Farrell rushed to hold her steady as they made their way to the traffic police. "Sir, my girlfriend's injured. She needs a doctor right away." The policeman glanced at me, confused as he took in my disheveled state. Nancy cut in, "I'm sorry for causing everyone so much trouble. I just borrowed a little of the baby's formula to feed my dog, and Cecilia got upset and hit me." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she continued. "But I'll forgive her. She still has a child to take care of, after all. Everyone started whispering in agreement after hearing Nancy speak. What an angel. She's so kind after being attacked. Who fights with a dog over baby formula? Such a petty mother. Honestly, what's the big deal? It's just a can of formula. Nancy deliberately stepped forward and shook my hand to make peace. However, when she turned her back to the crowd, her expression turned cold and vicious. I tightened my grip on Jordan and stepped back. Suddenly, she pinched the poodle in her arms. The dog winced in pain and sank its teeth into my hand. Blood started oozing out of my arm. Nancy screamed and staggered back. Cecilia, I tried to make peace. Why did you attack Rocky? Farrell strode over and slapped me hard across the face. You live on junk food. Your blood's probably toxic. If Rocky falls sick, I'll make you pay for it. Pain burst across my cheeks. Jordan's cries turned into whimpers, and his face now had a bluish cast. Some dog lovers threw their half-eaten burgers at me and snapped, picking on a dog. What's wrong with you? An evil woman like her should be arrested. Sir, you need to punish her. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Then, I mustered whatever strength I had left and pleaded, please, someone call an ambulance. My father is Adrian Smith. I'll pay you $100 million if you help me. The crowd erupted in laughter. You are the richest man's daughter? How many zeros are there in $100 million? She's experiencing postpartum depression and needs to be sent to a mental hospital. Maybe look in the mirror before spinning fairy tales. Nancy pretended to be concerned and said gently, Cecilia, stop it. You can be sent to jail for impersonating someone. Farrell grabbed my hair and yanked me to the ground. You're not going anywhere until you get on your knees and apologize to Nancy 100 times. I won't let you off so easily. Jordan's body began to jerk, and foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. Jordan! I screamed in agony. Suddenly, a helicopter zipped over us in the sky, its deafening roar drowning out all the noise. A furious voice boomed from the loudspeaker, Who dares to hurt my daughter? 6 figures in white coats descended from the helicopter on fast ropes, landing with swift precision before sprinting straight toward Jordan and me. The lead doctor took a convulsing Jordan from my arms and examined him with practiced ease. Infant in acute anaphylactic shock, heart rate falling, oxygen saturation below 70%. Prepare epinephrine, 0.1 milligrams, IV. Defibrillator CHARGED 20 joules, ready. I watched in agony as the doctor pressed on Jordan's tiny chest. Each compression lifted his fragile body slightly off the ground. When the defibrillator discharged, Jordan's body jolted violently. I almost lunged forward, but a nurse gently held me back. Please trust us, Ms. Smith. Just then, a familiar figure broke free from the crowd. My father rushed toward us, his eyes burning with rage when he saw my blood-stained clothes and the limp child. Who dares to hurt my daughter and grandson? He yelled. Everyone went still and lowered their heads, retreating. Farrell stood rooted to the spot, shaking uncontrollably. Nancy hid behind him while Rocky, who was in her arms, remained quiet. Mr. Smith, a man in a tailored suit, stammered as he pushed through the crowd. What brings you here? Is this your dad? Cut him off tersely. Someone swapped my grandson's prescription formula, tried to kill him with dog food, and blocked every attempt to save him. That's attempted murder. Farrell's knees buckled, but he scrambled for a defense. Adrian, this is all a misunderstanding. I'm Cecilia's husband. We had other food ready for Jordan, but she was too stubborn. Dad sneered. Shut up. My daughter isn't married. Since when did she have a husband? Isaac protested, but Jordan is fine, isn't he? Cecilia has postpartum depression, so she's been acting paranoid. She even attacked us. Suddenly, Nancy said in between sobs, I know you love your daughter, Mr. Smith. However, you should be reasonable. Cecilia attacked me for no reason. My body hurts. A middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses tried to salvage the situation. Mr. Smith, shouldn't we try to reach a compromise? If this goes public, it will affect the Smith Corporation's stock price. Dad rebuffed coldly, stock price? Do you think the torture my daughter just went through can be resolved with money? How long until the police get here? Captain Judwer and his team from the Police Criminal Investigations Unit will be here in about 80 seconds. 2 halves. Since she was a child, my daughter has been someone who wouldn't hurt a fly. Why should she attack someone for no reason? No one is walking away until this is settled today, Dad declared. The dog lovers who had been acting so arrogantly earlier fell silent. Dad gazed at a small silver button on my car's dashboard, an emergency distress switch he'd had installed. Ever since I was kidnapped as a child, he'd secretly built these lifelines into everything I owned. Amid the struggle earlier, my elbow must have hit the button. That was how he received the precise signal of my whereabouts and arrived out of the sky with the helicopter. Nancy clung to Farrell's sleeve and said in a panic, I was just concerned about Rocky. A dog's life matters, too. Dad walked up to me, took a sterile wipe, and gently cleaned the blood from my face. Then, he lifted a bottle of water to my lips. When he saw the dog's bite mark on my arm, his eyes reddened. Don't worry, I'm here. Dad smoothed my messy hair and rubbed my back gently. Jordan is going to be fine. Tell me if you feel any pain. Important than keeping a family together. Young people all make mistakes. We should learn to forgive and forget. I think the mother is also at fault. She can't even take proper care of her child. Dad's gaze sliced through the crowd, and the chatter immediately died down. He spoke curtly without raising his voice. Does my daughter deserve to be abused, just because the Smith family is rich? Does my grandson deserve to be fed dog food? Since when does playing the victim become a free pass for abuses? And since when did a victim asking for justice turn into bullying? If it were your child in that ambulance right now, would you still be telling me to forgive and forget? Dad's assistant tapped a tablet, and the dashcam footage was displayed clearly. On the screen, Nancy secretly poured the prescription formula into a bag of dog food. Her voice oozed through the speakers. Now, that little brat has nothing to eat. He'll definitely end up in the emergency department. Even if he doesn't die, he'll wish he had. Then, Farrell's voice followed. You've thought of everything. Once something happens to Jordan, we'll claim that it was due to Cecilia's negligence. She mixed up the formulas. After all, she's got postpartum depression, right? No one will believe what she says. They'll think she went mad and hurt her child. When the recording reached the part where Farrell forcefully fed Jordan with dog food, the police officers on the scene became furious. They knew my grandson was allergic to over 200 substances, yet they intentionally swapped his life-saving formula. Even when they were explicitly told that it would be fatal, they forced it down his throat anyway. They incited a crowd to block a rescue and framed the innocent. This isn't a family dispute, it's attempted murder. Dad turned to the lead investigator and continued solemnly, as the victim's next of kin, I request a formal investigation into homicide. The onlookers who attempted to make peace moments ago became outraged. Farrell, you're worse than an animal. Even a tiger doesn't eat its cubs. You are so evil. You deserve to go to hell for doing this to your flesh and blood. All this for a mistress? Were you trying to fool us all? Enjoy rotting in prison. He should be given life imprisonment. A man like him doesn't deserve to live. If the child dies, you'll pay for it. With your life. I must have been blind to believe your crap. Farrell's knees turned weak, and he collapsed to the ground. Cold sweat poured down his face as he muttered, "No. No, it's not like that." Suddenly, Nancy burst into tears and complained, "Sir, Farrell forced that formula on me. He said the baby had more formula, and he was so sorry for Rocky's stomachache. It's my fault for being so naive in trusting a monster like him." Farrell shook with rage. "Nonsense. You were carrying the dog and crying miserably. A dog with an upset stomach only needs probiotics. Who could have guessed that you'd steal the food your son needed? My biggest mistake was being too kind. I should have called the police on you earlier." I raised a hand to stop this nauseating little play. "Are you two done with your performance?" Farrell scrambled toward me on his knees, reaching for my hand. I stepped aside, so he dragged himself forward another 2 steps. "I'm sorry, honey. That bitch tricked me. I can't have a criminal record. It'll stain Jordan's life forever. Please, for our son's sake, forgive me this once. I promise I'll never meet Nancy ever again." Farrell lunged for the hem of my pants, but I evaded him. He lost his balance and hit the ground. I stated, "You didn't care about Jordan when you were shoving dog food into his mouth. You were willing to let him die just to please your mistress. You don't deserve to be a human, Farrell. Let alone a father." Our love was long gone after countless betrayals. All that remained in my heart was a cold, absolute resolve. When the police took out the handcuffs, Nancy made one final attempt at pleading her case. "It wasn't me. It was all Farrell's idea." "You liar." "Nancy seduced me. I never intended to harm Jordan," Farrell retorted. I calmly held up my phone and said, "Do you need me to play the dashcam recording again? Or remind you how you two planned to make me accidentally lose my child?" Farrell and Nancy turned pale and froze on the spot. Then, Farrell wrenched free of the officer's grip and dropped to his knees with a thud. "Chekilia, please give me another chance. We've been together for 5 years. 5 years? That sounded ironic. I looked at Farrell's tear-streaken face and felt nothing. The part of my heart that had once burned for him was now nothing but cold ash. "Farrell, when you forced dog food into Jordan's mouth, did you remember that you were his father? Did you remember the 5 years we shared when you reprimanded me with Nancy by your side?" I closed in and loomed over the man whom I once shared my bed with. "Jordan will never have a father who tried to kill him. I'll tell him his father died a long time ago. You don't deserve love, and you're not worthy of being called a father." I turned to the police officer and nodded. "Please take him away." As sirens wailed, Dad pulled me into his embrace and said, "Everything's over." Farrell and Nancy's trial proceeded quickly. With attempted murder, embezzlement, forgery, and countless crimes proven, Farrell was sentenced to 12 years in prison. On the day of the verdict, he fixed his gaze on me from the defendants. "Doc," he mouthed, "I'm sorry. It was too late." I sent him a message through my secretary. "Jordan has learned to walk. He doesn't need a father who is a murderer." I heard Farrell had a tough time in prison. He was at the bottom of the hierarchy for being sentenced as a man who stole from his Dying child. During recreation time, someone beat him so badly that 3 of his ribs snapped. From then on, he had to walk around with a hunched back. Nancy was sentenced to 5 years in prison. After getting out, she returned to her hometown and found a job as a cashier at a supermarket. I passed through that town on a business trip and spotted her at the supermarket. Although she was only 28 years old, the skin around her eyes was already creased with wrinkles. A drunk customer was pointing at her nose and yelling at her while she bowed her head over and over in apology. When Nancy looked up, our eyes met. Her gaze darkened instantly. I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned and walked away. Some people weren't worth the effort of revenge. Seeing them spend the rest of their lives in misery was the best punishment. It was a late autumn afternoon when I held Jordan and walked out of the art museum. At 10, he was in that age of endless curiosity about the world. He chatted excitedly about the oil paintings we had seen earlier. Suddenly, Jordan tugged my shirt and said, "Mommy, that homeless man is looking at us." I followed his gaze. A person dressed in ragged clothes crouched at the corner of the street. A chipped ceramic bowl was placed before him. I realized he was Farrell. The moment he raised his head, he looked 20 years older than I remembered. His right leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and his eyes were dull and empty. Jordan fished a coin from his pocket and skipped over. He placed the coin in the bowl and said, "Sir, please get something to eat." He was so young, and his eyes were filled with pure innocence. Farrell's lips trembled. He looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he lowered his head further. "Mommy, do you know that man? He looked like he wanted to speak to you." Jordan returned to me and held my hand. The autumn wind blew the leaves around us. As they drifted down like flakes of gold, I adjusted my son's scarf and smiled faintly as I replied, "Nope. He's just a stranger." I grabbed Jordan's hand and headed to the car parked along the roadside. The car window rolled up slowly, shutting out the autumn chill. Jordan leaned against me and hummed the new song he had learned at school. His legs swung to the rhythm. From the rearview mirror, I saw the crouched figure becoming smaller and smaller until it vanished in the sea of traffic. The teacher said the sunflowers I drew look vibrant today, Jordan said. He thought of something and pulled a painting from his portfolio. "I want to hang it in Daddy's study." I looked at the golden petals on the paper and remembered how Russell Hodge had secretly tucked a new set of paints into Jordan's kit this morning as we were leaving the house. Over the last 10 years, Russell had healed Jordan's childhood scars in his own way, with mugs of warm milk during late night study sessions, his booming voice from the sidelines at every track meet, and the mysterious gifts that appeared in the morning beside Jordan's bed. On every birthday, "Mommy, Daddy promised to do the 3-legged race with me at the school sports meet next week." I ruffled Jordan's hair as the city lights reflected against his face. The shadows of the past had finally faded into a blurred, distant memory. The warmth of his hand in mine was the only thing that felt real. Every painful goodbye in the world was simply a precursor to reuniting with a better version of oneself. As the car turned into the driveway, a warm, amber glow flickered through the windows of our home. Russell's tall figure stood by the doorway, his gaze fixed in the direction of our car. Hugging his painting to his chest, Jordan flung the car door open and tumbled out, racing toward the light. Like a bird returning to its nest, I followed after Jordan at a slower pace, watching as Russell lifted him high into the air. Their laughter sent the sparrows nearby fluttering. A vase of my favorite white lisianthus was placed by the entryway. The aroma of soup drifted from the dining room. I realized then that the best kind of future didn't need grand speeches or dramatic vows. It was hidden in the small moments handled with care, warmth of an always open embrace, and the flowers that bloomed through the most ordinary days. Night settled, and the first stars emerged. In the stillness of the evening, the next chapter of our happy lives began to unfold. The shadows of the past had retreated at last, becoming nothing more than distant footnotes on the long road of growing up. Our future would be bright. Years later, I still found myself recalling the afternoon I first met Farrell. I was fresh out of Watford University, brimming with ambition to conquer the world and fulfill my dreams. However, my dad had exiled me to one of the company's smallest. Years later, I still found myself recalling the afternoon I first met Farrell. I was fresh out of Watford University, brimming with ambition to conquer the world and fulfill my dreams. However, my dad had exiled me to one of the company's smallest subsidiaries. I could still remember my dad's advice. You have to start from the ground up to understand people thoroughly. And so, I became the project manager, and Farrell was my supervisor. He wore shirts so faded that they had lost their color, the cuffs frayed and thin. Yet, on nights when we worked late, he would somehow make a hot cup of milk magically appear in front of me. His eyes were tender as he said, warmly, "Cecilia, it isn't easy for a woman to make it on her own." It was pouring that night, and only two of us from the project team remained. Farrell slipped off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, standing in the chill of the air conditioning in nothing but his thin shirt. "Don't worry, I'll work on the project with you." In that moment, I fell hopelessly for the dream he spun for me. I stood in Dad's study and said defiantly, "I refuse to be a bird locked in a cage." We squeezed in a second-hand couch and shared a bowl of instant noodles in a 300 square foot rented house. Farrell picked up the only fried egg we had and dropped it into my bowl. "We'll move to a bigger house after receiving the project bonus," he vowed with conviction. Now, standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 88th floor that overlooked the city, I realized that the glass of milk had only cost $3, and the monthly rent for that cramped apartment was less than what I currently spent on my afternoon tea. Farrell's promise for me to lead a good life wasn't even worth mentioning. The most absurd thing was that the man who once swore to give me happiness nearly took the life of his own child. Some people only ever entered another's life to teach them a valuable lesson. If they fell in love with the wrong person, they were destined to suffer.